Welcome to Magic Minutes by MGIC, mortgage industry training that helps you expand your knowledge and skills. Before we get started, take a moment to review our legal disclaimer. MGIC is providing this as general information based on current industry guidelines at the time of this recording. It is always advised that you seek the guidance of your own compliance and regulatory departments.
Hello, and welcome to our series on evaluating and calculating borrowers' income. I'm Sandra Sweeney, Senior Customer Trainer and Program Designer for MGIC. This is part 4 in our series, and today we'll discuss how to calculate non-taxable income. In this video, we'll talk about how you can gross up non-taxable income to increase your borrower's qualifying monthly income. We'll begin by discussing the different types of non-taxable income, how we go about documenting and grossing up this type of income. We'll look at income that is fully tax exempt, such as child support, alimony, and foster care. Then I'll talk about income that may contain a non-taxable portion, such as Social Security income. Lastly, we'll discover that there are some types of compensation that include benefits that are non-taxable. So, let's get started. Sometimes during the process of qualifying our borrowers, we are looking for every last dollar in qualifying income. There are times when we can give consideration to regular sources of income that may be non-taxable. In that case, once the income is verified to be tax exempt, we can develop an adjusted gross income by grossing up the non-taxable portion. Let's look at some examples and go over how we determine what income can be grossed up. Non-taxable income can include child support, foster care, some Social Security and other retirement benefits, alimony, military allowances, public assistance, and clergy housing benefits. Please note, this is not an all-inclusive list. What direction do the agencies give on how to review this type of income? Let's look at what Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac selling guides say. For both Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, if you provide verification that the source is non-taxable, then you can adjust the tax-exempt income by 25% or more if the actual tax bracket is developed. For Freddie Mac, they provide a shortcut for Social Security income. The lender can gross up 15% of the total income without obtaining any additional documentation. So how do we go about grossing up income? Let's take a look at the math. We would determine the non-taxable portion amount. That amount would be multiplied by 25% to arrive at the grossed up portion. Then that portion can be added to the qualifying income to equal the adjusted total income. If we know that all of the income is tax exempt, then we can simply take that amount and multiply by 1.25, and the result will be the adjusted total income. Let's take a closer look at income that is fully tax exempt. In this section, we will look at some income that can be grossed up in its entirety. Child support is 100% tax exempt, and as such can be grossed up in its entirety. Alimony for divorces after December 31st, 2018 is non-taxable. However, prior to that date, it was taxable. So this is an interesting type of income in that its tax-exempt status is dependent on the date of divorce. Foster care income is again 100% tax-exempt. Now we are going to take a closer look at these type of income and some other factors that you will need to consider in order to determine whether or not the income is eligible as qualifying income. An analysis of income eligibility needs to be completed first prior to grossing up of income. Starting with child support. If your borrower has been awarded child support, you have a couple of challenges with using this type of income. The child support must have been received on a consistent basis, and you must prove that this income will continue for at least an additional 3 years. You will document this income with a copy of the legal agreement that outlines the payer's obligation and provide evidence that the income will continue for an additional 3 years. Generally, a copy of the birth certificate for the minor child will suffice. Lastly, you will need to provide evidence of consistent receipt of this income. In other words, if the borrower has been awarded $1,000 in monthly child support, then you should see receipt of that $1,000 every month. If the income meets all of this eligibility criteria, then it can be grossed up. If your borrower has been awarded alimony, then again, this type of income must have been received on a consistent basis and must continue for at least an additional 3 years. You will need a copy of the legal document outlining the terms of the agreement, and you will also need to check to see that there are at least 3 years remaining in the payer's obligation. Lastly, you will need verification that this income has been received on a consistent basis. If the divorce was after December 31st, 2018, then this income can be grossed up in its entirety. One of the ways of documenting the date of the divorce would be to look at Schedule 1 of your borrower's individual tax returns. There is something interesting to note, which is this blank on the tax return asking for the date of the divorce. The reason for this is due to a tax change. For divorces entered into after December 31st, 2018, the receipt of alimony is no longer taxable. So if your borrower was awarded alimony after this date, it can be grossed up. If your borrower receives money from a state or county-sponsored program for providing foster care and has a 2-year history receiving this money, you can use this income for qualifying. The challenge is foster care income is non-taxable and may not be reported on a tax return. Document with a letter from the organization providing the income. The letter should include a 24-month history of earnings. If you meet the eligibility criteria and you can verify this income, then it can be grossed up in its entirety. Fannie Mae does allow foster care that has been received for less than 2 years, but at least 12 months, to be considered if the income does not represent more than 30% of the qualifying income. In this section, we will discuss how there are some income types that have a portion of the total income that may be non-taxable. An example is Social Security. How can we determine what portion of the borrower's Social Security benefits are non-taxable? We can determine that portion in several different ways. One way is to look at the borrower's federal tax return and look at the middle section of page 1 at line 6A, which will reflect the total Social Security benefits. To the right at line 6B will be the taxable portion. So then we will know that the non-taxable portion of Social Security benefits will be 6A minus 6B, and that is the portion that can be grossed up. Note that lines 2 through 6 will reflect total taxable types of income that may contain portions that are non-taxable. Let's take a look at an example, but before we do, remember that our MGIC Employment and Other Income Analysis worksheet has a section at the bottom of the worksheet that helps us calculate non-taxable income and does the math for us. The borrower's tax return reflects a total Social Security benefits of $20,000. To the right, $8,000 is indicated as the taxable amount. Putting these figures into the worksheet, we arrive at $12,000 in non-taxable income that is grossed up by 25%. Then you can see that our gross Social Security benefit income went from $1,666.67 per month to an adjusted income of $1,916.67, and that is what we can use as our qualifying income. Now remember that Freddie Mac has a shortcut when it comes to Social Security benefits. Their selling guide gives us the option to gross up 15% of the total Social Security benefits without obtaining any further documentation. So this is the path that we would use. We would take that income times 25%, which would give us the amount eligible to be grossed up. then this figure can be multiplied by 25% to arrive at the grossed up amount, and then that amount can be added to the income to arrive at the total adjusted income. Using our example of total Social Security benefits of $20,000 times 15% would equal $3,000, which can be grossed up by multiplying by 25%, which would give us an additional income of $750. When added to the $20,000, this results in total income of $20,750 divided by 12, which would equal $1,729.17. This may be all that is needed to help us qualify. In this last category of other income that may be non-taxable, we're going to look at some examples of compensation that contain some benefits that may be non-taxable. Here are 3 examples of compensation that may include non-taxable benefits. Some military allowances, such as base housing and basic allowance for housing, and basic allowance for subsistence. Some public assistance benefits. Clergy housing benefits that have been received for at least 12 months. In these cases, the benefits that are tax exempt may be grossed up. Questions to ask. Has the non-taxable portion of the income been verified? Has the income been received consistently, and will it continue to be received for at least 3 more years? Take a moment to check your understanding. Do you know how these 3 statements should be completed? Let's go over them together. Income that has been verified to be non-taxable can be grossed up by 25%. For Freddie Mac loans, 15% of Social Security income can be grossed up without obtaining further documentation. A borrower has been awarded $1,000 per month in child support. A receipt history shows the following: $800, $1,200, $600, $1,400, $500, and $1,500 in receipt for the past 6 months. Can this be used? The answer would be no, because although there appears to be some catch-up amounts, the income has not been received on a consistent basis. Remember, qualifying income must be reasonable, verifiable, consistent, stable, and likely to continue.
Thank you for joining us for Magic Minutes. We hope this brief tutorial has made a difference for you. For more how-to videos, visit mgic.com/training.